So today will be a box opening and an initial review of this lens here. This is a Sigma 135 F 1.8, arguably one of the best lenses you can get in the market for the purpose of portrait. I'm Richard and welcome to ZP Productions, and today we will be doing a box opening followed by a physical review, then a image review at the end of this video. So first I'll do the unboxing, and then you will see me disappear for a while and change my clothes and everything, and I will come back with the actual review in terms of handling and of course on the field usage and image quality. Now this lens is loaned to me by SLR Revolution, and they just want to let me show you guys what's inside the box, and ultimately, what are you going to get with this lens here. So let's do a box opening, and then let me show you what's inside the box itself. So when you open a Sigma box, they are the white box here, right? And you can see there are a few items here, mainly the documentations, the warranty cards, and of course a strap. These are all the documentations. A strap. And then the actual lens itself. Now, one thing I love about Sigma is that after so many years, they always, give a soft case with the lens. Now, one thing I like about Sigma is that they always give a soft case with the lens, and this is something that I really appreciate a lot, because when I was when I'm going to keep the lens up somewhere that is not inside the dry box, or just for transportation, if I have the space, I would prefer a soft case rather than the Canon squishy case, which doesn't protect the lens anyway. However, just to note that this case, it will not be very useful if you are intending to put in a standard camera bag. In that case, then this case will be quite useless. Anyway, this case is as it is. You can see the 135 is inside here. Let me open up. And this is a brand new 135 lens with the hood. Let me take out the hood. Put back the hood first. And this is the 135mm lens itself. One thing that surprised me, I honestly have not touched a 135mm before. I only read all the reviews online. This is surprisingly quite small. Now, let me tell you why I feel it's quite small. Because if you compare this to, say, this one. Let me take this out. Give me a moment. Now, if I was to put the 40mm next to it, notice that the 40mm is actually bigger than the 135 1.8. It's crazy. This 40mm is really one hell of a big lens. The 135, of course, is thicker. Oh, by the way, this is a Canon cap. It should be a Sigma cap. Yeah, but it's bigger. It's thicker. And in terms of weight, at least on my hand, it feels the same, but I'll put the weight below. It feels the same. In terms of build quality, it also feels the same. It's like metal, rubber, with weather sealing all around. But most noticeably, the 40mm is actually bigger in size than the 135mm. That is really something quite different. Now, the 135, of course, is a huge chunk of glass. And let me see. This is an 82mm filter. And you can see it's a huge chunk of glass. In fact, why did I have to... Oh, wait, something is wrong here. Notice, oh, this is really one huge chunk of glass. Why did I have to check the cover is because this is the first time I've seen a lens that the glass itself is almost close to the edge. You notice that the glass itself is almost close to the edge of the lens barrel itself. Now, if you look at the 40mm, for example, you'll notice that there is quite a bit of black around here. Or, by the way, this is a filter. Black around thing before they see the glass element, but this is totally just glass element. So it's really impressive. And overall, if you ask me, the lens in terms of build quality wise seems really good. I mean, it looks on par to modern Sigma lenses. And it is following, of course, the standard EF ones, which means that this is a mechanically coupled lens. It's not a electronic coupled lens. And then there is a rubber gasket here. It shows that it has a certain amount of weather sealing. And this lens has an additional switch. So they have the standard AF MF switch you can see here. And in addition to that, they also have the full 1.5 to infinity, and 0.875 to 1.5, which means the close distance focusing. Overall, if you ask me in terms of build quality, this is a really nice lens. Definitely top notch in terms of overall quality itself. At least in build quality wise. So now I'll be taking this lens out to do a short review, and I'll be back in a few days time. You'll probably see me change clothes, and I will talk about things like handling and of course its image quality out in the field itself. So at least now these days I try to do a bit of box opening so to let you see what you get inside the lens kit itself, and then how does the lens look like straight out of the box, which is something that may interest some of you guys here. And that's about it. Let me disappear and reappear for you guys, probably just a few seconds. I'm back and I have already did one photo shoot, or should I say 2 photo shoots so far, one outdoor and one indoor with this 135mm lens. So now let's talk about the handling of this lens and of course its general image quality and how do I feel about it. Okay, firstly I talk about handling. Now this lens is surprisingly, if you ask me, light and small. Because if you actually compare with every single lens on my table here, look at this. For example, the 85mm here and the 135mm. You can see that even the 85mm f1.2 is bigger than the 135 f1.8. By the way, if you actually use some mathematical calculation, the amount of bokeh produced by the 135 f1.8 should be slightly more than the 85 1.2. Now, if you actually compare with almost every other lens except for the RF 50mm, even the Sigma 40mm, as I said earlier, the Sigma 40mm is actually bigger than this lens. So out in the field, this is actually really nice to handle. And if you actually mount it on a camera like the R5, let me show you. It's really not too bad, and it's really not too big or unwieldy, because most of the weight is actually down here, this part of the camera. So actually it's quite okay to hold with one hand and constantly use it, and it's not very heavy. It's like 1,130 grams previously. So it's really manageable if you ask me out in the field usage. And that is it for in terms of handling, general handling because of the weight, the size and dimension. Now, when it comes to actual usage itself, let's talk about autofocus and IBIS. First, we talk about IBIS first, because that one can be something tested at home. So I actually tested IBIS at home, and I will tell you that this lens works really nicely with the R5. And with the R5, you can get, you can look at this picture here, just know that 5-star means perfect focus, very sharp, while 4-star means it's sharp enough to use, but may not be just critical. And you can really see that in the center, which is actually 1/10 of a shutter, there is almost a hit rate of 80% critically sharp, and just one photo which is sharp enough for usage. Very impressive if you ask me. So the 135mm with the R5 can shoot at 1/10 really stably as long as the subject is not moving. At 1.5 you notice there's only 2 that is sharp enough for usage and 3 that is really soft, so it's not really worth it. So IBIS, at least for the 135 Sigma and the R5, is very usable. Now in real world, of course, once again, with model shoots, portrait shoots, your model is not going to stand really still. So 120, 130 is what you expect. So the next thing we talk about is autofocus, and autofocus on the R5 is really reliable. If you look at these 66 photos, I did outdoor shoot with Yukiko. I can't zoom in, of course. If not, she'll come and find me. But I can tell you that in these 66 photos, none of them were out of focus. It's really that good. Every single shot, if you ask me, was sharp enough or totally critically sharp. In fact, I can show you some 100% crop here, and you can see that it is really sharp. I'm just randomly choosing some to just show you guys, and I can tell you that it is really critically sharp. The only time where the eyes are not critically sharp is if the face detect is not working properly, the eye detect is not working properly, or if not, the box itself, the AF box itself is not on the right eye. So that is about it. I would say as a hit rate 98, 99, very similar to almost every other lens on the table here. That is how reliable this Sigma 135mm is. I would say the newer Sigma lenses are really accurate, unlike the 85mm Sigma lens, which I tried previously, had only a hit rate of about 80-90%. While the modern Sigmas like the 105, 135, and the 40mm Sigmas are really reliable in that form. Now, just to say that this shoot, I did not have a chance to let the model spin around and get moving action shots because her current costume wasn't really fit for that. So I have to say that I have to test another time. The Sigma 40mm works really well. The 85 Sigma didn't work so well. The 105 was okay, but the 135 I really have to test, because a 135mm it will be perfect for a full body spinning shot, and if the IAF works properly, I think it'll be a very fantastic lens. And that is about it for AF. Now let's talk about image quality. So image quality, usually I will have the synthetic ones, which means I'm going to shoot some random buildings out there and do a comparison, and then after that I'll talk about real world shooting, how does it work out. Now when it comes to this lens in terms of image quality, let's talk about the synthetic ones first. I would say as the image quality out of this lens is really good. When I shot some building, I feel that it is really sharp in the center. It's also sharp at the edges. Now, the most impressive part of this lens is that it is really sharp all the way to the edges. In fact, the sharpness of the edge and the center do not differ too much in my eyes. Really, you can see these photos here. If you want to compare with other lenses, so I recently started keeping a database of all that. So I got the Sigma 105, I got the RF85, I even got a 200mm shot of this position. Just to note, different days have different weather, so bear with the color tones and stuff. But if you look at the sharpness itself, one thing you will notice that the Sigma 135mm maybe is atmospheric haze, or maybe it's glow. But you can tell that wide open, yes, it has the detail, but it has this slight, really slight haze on the 135mm. I mean, this is really slight. It is still sharper than most lenses, definitely sharper than the 50mm RF. But if you compare it to like the Sigma 105, you really can notice the difference in the haze, at least in the center itself. Now, if you compare the 200mm, if you don't believe what I mean by critically sharp, you can also look at this, and the 200mm at the pixel level, you can tell that it is less hazy and more sharp in the center. At least it looks that way compared to the 135. As I said, it may be due to atmospheric haze. It may also be due to the sunlight hitting. Because I did notice one other characteristics of this lens. I'll talk about it later. But that is in the center. Now, the moment we move off center a little bit, it pretty much is par to every single lens on this table here. Move down a bit, it beats it. I wouldn't say it beat the 200mm, but it is as good as the 200mm, or maybe it's just a touch better than 200mm when you move, the moment you move down the frame. And if you compare to, let's say, the Sigma 105 at the extreme left side or at corner side, you will see that they are on par, or maybe the 135 maybe just a touch more detailed. So really, this 135, the most impressive part is how sharp it is across the entire frame. Really, that's very impressive. Now, if we move on to the night version of this scene, then I have something to say. And you know, just now the thing I talked about, the haze and glow, I need notice that the lights on the 135 does have just a little touch of glow. It's very similar to the RF50mm type, where the lights inside are not perfect balls, they just glow slightly, ever so slightly. But you also notice that there is no CA, at least in the center of the frame. The balls, they are just glowing and hazing, but there is no CA itself. And that is what makes this lens really impressive, at least in the center, because the 105, you can tell that it's just this slight CA, but the 135 doesn't. Now, if you move to the side of the frame, the 105mm and the 135mm, remember last time I said the 105 had some funny shaped lights? The 135 do not suffer that problem, and at the side of the frame, you'll see that yes, it's not perfectly round, but it's definitely better than the 105 Sigma when it comes to the shape of the lights. Now, I did earlier say in the daytime that the Sigma 135 most impressive part is how sharp it is across the frame, and I can show you again in this shot. Go at the bottom of the frame, and compared to the 105, it is actually, I'll say, it's noticeably sharper at the bottom of the frame than the 105. So this is something that I noticed with the 135 Sigma. Then that's about it for the synthetic test. So beyond the synthetic test, let's talk about real world performance. Now, real world performance, very simple. Look at this shot here, and you can see that she is backlighted, really strong backlighted. I mean, the light is coming out from the outside through a curtain. Look at the edges of her arm. You notice that the CA is really minimal. In such cases, CA normally comes. By the way, I did not correct the shot. You can see that it's almost insignificant amount of CA in such extreme condition between the hand and the background itself. Or look at the hair itself, there is actually no CA. So that is a very impressive performance of the 135. And now in the other shot here, you can see that all the close-ups I shown earlier, I re-show you again how sharp it is when it is in focus. It is critically focused at f1.8. You can see perfect sharpness, lash counting level sharpness. That's how impressive this 135 is. And if you actually look at the entirety of the shot, look at the bokeh, it is really smooth, really nice. The separation is very good with the background. And overall, if you ask me, the sharpness and the pop effect is something you will get closer to a telephoto lens. If you have seen my previous video on focal length, in fact, I'll put it up there. I recommend using a 200mm because firstly, there's very little perspective distortion, and secondly, it gives you a very nice pop effect due to the compression and of course, the calculation of how depth of field works. The 135mm is actually getting really, really close to a 200mm, and I still stand by what I said in a few videos ago that the 135mm may be an alternative to you if you cannot afford the 200mm f2. The 135mm f1.8 is definitely a better choice if your budget is a limit. Now, in combination with everything, the size, the weight, and the image quality, I think the 135mm is really fantastic. So, in terms of image quality, I think the 135mm really is one of the better Sigma lenses. Definitely way better than the 85mm art. I would say this is as good as it gets currently EF lens. Now, if you actually go online and read, the Sony 135mm is slightly better, especially if you use it on the A7R4. Now, we do not know whether the RF version of the 135 will ever come. I mean, there is a rumor that the 135 1.4 may be coming. We do not know. So for now, if you need a 135, a more telephoto portrait lens, the 135mm Sigma is probably the lens for you. So in my final thoughts, really, if you want a telephoto look, you want a compression, you want a very near perfect lens, a lens that can shoot anywhere in a frame with a very nice image quality, and a lens that actually works perfectly fine with the RFI autofocus mechanism, the Sigma 135mm is the choice I will recommend. Now, if you look at the entire lens lineup, remember that if you want to buy lenses, you really have to look at your lens lineup itself. If you own a 35mm, the next logical step in the range is probably, if you ask me, is 85mm, something that's double the focal length. And of course, after 85mm, the next thing is, of course, 160 or 200mm. Now, if you cannot afford the 200 f2, the 200 f2.8 is okay, but if you find that it's a bit too long, I think the Sigma 135mm f1.8 is a good step in. Because this lens is long enough, you really gain all the advantage of a telephoto prime, and it is sharp enough to use almost anywhere in the frame. And of course, it works really well. And that's about it for today's video. This is just an initial review. After using this for maybe a month or two, I'll come back with a final review, and I'll maybe have some more thoughts on how this lens actually works, and maybe get some shots of spinning movements, which is a bit harder than normal static shots with IAF. By the way, I always shoot this in continuous AF. I never shoot this in a single one-shot focus unless it's for night shoot. And that's about it for today's video. I hope you enjoy this, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.